David, I'd like to warn you that I know nothing about fishing.
There you go.
I think I caught a puffer fish once.
Okay, yeah, we're highly prized.
That's about it. And I watched how to, what's that? Finding Nemo.
Mm-hmm.
If that counts.
No, you're a full model now, right?
Yeah. So now, David, let's go back to 1978.
Damn.
Fresh out of uni in Melbourne with a marine zoology degree, and you graduated and you've written 40 letters to fishing companies, and you only got 2 responses. And I believe your mother paid for a plane ride.
You've been doing your homework, right?
Your mum paid for a flight to come to Perth.
Yep.
I mean, what the hell was driving all of this? While I believe you would have been 22 back then.
You back up, so that the context there is dear old dad was a veterinary surgeon.
Yeah,
and like a lot of shiny-eyed young fellas, it's you can't help but idolise your dad to a bit. So I thought I'd like to be a vet, but I was a failed vet. Didn't get the TE scores that would make that work. So I think it was like number 7 down on the card was do a science degree, and then which is what I did. And the science degree was a focus on marine because I'd had some interest in. I was drawn to the ocean, done a bit of sailing at the time. By the time I'd finished that degree, I'd done 2 Melbourne Hobarts and a Sydney Hobart yacht race, and done a little bit of scuba diving in Bass Strait, which is challenging.
Wow.
And so I thought and also at around the same time, Australia was declaring, along with many other countries in the world, an expanded exclusive economic zone around the ocean. So we took our EEZ out to 200 miles and naively thought...
so you're an accomplished sailor from back then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, hardened. Right. I'd had a lot of ocean miles by the time I was I was 20 really. But I'd figured that with that expanded exclusive economic zone that there'd be opportunities in the fish business. And so that became the focus, and as you said, got to Perth and had 2 meetings. One was with the now deceased MG Kalis, famous for what is now pearls and exmouth prawns and all sorts of other things. And that didn't go so well. He didn't think I really knew what I wanted to do. And that's fair enough. I was 20. And the second interview was with a chap by the name of Murray France, who was proprietor, co-owner, investor in a business known as Kalis in France. And then there was another business called KFE Fisheries. And
your predecessor there, yeah.
And he said after he spoke to me for 2 hours, it was like you can there's a boat leaving Darwin in a week. You can jump on board and start your career as a trainee millionaire, he says.
And that's insane in itself.
Yeah.
I mean, to go from
still in training,
the comfort of the middle-class Melbourne lifestyle to deckhand out in Darwin, with crazy fishing crews.
In the wilds.
What were you thinking?
What an adventure. Well, I knew, but by the time I'd finished my degree, I knew I didn't want to be a barnacle on the arsehole of society anymore. So I thought fishing's about as real as it gets, and I wasn't disappointed.
Right.
I think within 6 weeks, I was the longest serving crewman on board that boat. So,
wow.
That was a great experience.
Wow, speaks volume. So tell me, what did those early days as deckhand taught you that you couldn't learn anywhere else in your beliefs?
Yeah, I think it's a bit like being. So also through high school, I had time as a boarder. So you learn the social skills that allow you to interact with all walks of life, and I think that served me well. So it's unfair to perhaps characterise fishermen as simple, but their needs are basic, and they perform a valuable role, and you get to relate to those people. So sometimes it's a bit colourful, but I just developed a skill to keep my head down and be that sort of that quiet source of glue that kept things running, and you do learn a lot about yourself fishing. Like one of the enduring messages was particularly during the sort of the rigours of a banana prawn season, you're pushing yourself to limits of endurance and tolerance with a small number of people on a small boat with long hours, and you realise the human body's pretty amazing, and the capacity for enduring just that workload and stuff's
intolerance,
pretty significant. Yep.
Before we move from there, do you have one wild story while you were a deckhand from back in those days?
Just one.
Just one. The one that comes to mind. That's a highlight.
Perhaps the standout sort of example of youthful foolishness was in the middle of a banana prawn season, and there were probably 20 boats working this particular sort of patch of prawns, and it all gets pretty willing, and contest for the prime position is high. But we had these marriage lines that were trailing behind the boat. One of them got hooked up, and we were hooked up on another boat, so that's not a good look. And the skipper at the time instructed me to jump in this middle of this churned up, muddy, shark-infested waters with a knife between my teeth, wearing nothing but my pair of shorts, and try and cut the rope. So here I am, all these boats cruising around, and I'm over the side doing as I'm told, and I live to tell the tale.
Yeah, wow. That's insane. Okay. A knife.
The knife between the teeth has got sort of pirate overtones to it, doesn't it?
Right. Okay, well, one thing as well that I read about was Murray France's legacy, and your predecessor. You said that he taught you a rising tide lifts all boats. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that resonates with me quite a bit. Tell me a moment when his mentorship fundamentally changed the way you think.
Oof. It was more incremental, I think, Ray. He's always a big thinker, looking at those forces that sort of mold outcomes. But perhaps, I'm just sort of wrestling now as you put that to me. But one of the early examples, I think, was the ongoing work we've had in the northern prawn fishery, attempting to build consensus around reducing the size of the fleet. So the fishery was started with a hiss and a roar. There was a lot of boats chasing fewer and fewer prawns. Action was required, and there was pain going to be associated with making that adjustment, and lots of complex arguments about the biology and the economics. And I think through all of that, Murray's ability to find compromise and respect the role of each of the individuals and their unique circumstances in a way that overall ultimately got the job done. So it is that notion. Kind of still works for me today, and I frame it differently. But the idea that compromise is that unhappy place where nobody gets what they want, but everybody's better off. And I still very much live that.
That's brilliant. Well, you your leadership always embraced science first, and you run around with around 8 science graduates, I believe, on
Business,
your team.
Yes, I've lost track, 6 or 8.
Yeah, 6 or 8, right.
Hunting for another one at the moment.
Science first approach always.
Yeah.
But you also say doing the right thing, not the easy thing, is what gets you out of bed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love that. Talk to me about a time when the right decision was brutally hard in your leadership.
So many of them. With the science focus, the other fishery we're involved with is the sub-Antarctic toothfish fishery. And there's a lot of science goes into determining what is sustainable to remove from that fishery each year. And we had an incident in 2015, 2016. There was a significant heat wave event. Unexpectedly, catch rates dropped. So that's the amount of fish we catch per hook. And we didn't at this time understand why that was. But we're on track to come short of landing our quota, which is a heinous sin in our business. So by about 400 tonnes, it was probably at least that. And the first reaction was to run around and find more effort, find more horsepower to sort of grab the last of that fish and deliver that quota for the year. And we found a boat. We were all set to go, ready to hit the button. And we sat in the boardroom and we looked at each other and we said, "This is not us. Like we just go and flog this fishery, and that's a short-term gain when there's much longer-term stakes, much longer-term outcomes at stake." And it was a slightly hard sell for the board. The board are obviously keen on that. Probably had in our case, $6 or $8 million hit to the bottom line. So it wasn't easy, but it was it wasn't easy, and it was easy. It was easy because if my job as CEO of the business is preserving long-term shareholder value,
absolutely,
it was a no-brainer.
That's right.
Short-term, it wasn't entirely desirable, but that's the reality of dealing with nature.
Yeah, and you're prepared to face that
variability.
Yeah,
and there's more coming.
I remember when we first met. I remember that clearly, actually, because you make quite an impression, David. And I remember you saying, "I'm just a simple fisherman."
Yeah.
Right. and I had no idea who you were at the time, and I didn't know what kind of a fisherman you were. But you call yourself a simple fisherman, right? You've built the world's first carbon neutral seafood business. You pioneered the blockchain traceability on food packages, right? You won the MSC Lifetime Achievement Award, which is huge. How do you reconcile all of that?
Still a simple fisherman. Right? You don't care for
and
shit,
it's
mate.
Just mind-blowing reading all of this about your achievements and your legacy and you know your timeline in the industry, and yet you're a simple fisherman. So how do you reconcile that?
Just a country boy, mate. Just doing my best. But blessed too to have the support of a board. So I'm not invested in this business directly, personally. It's an immense privilege to be gifted the opportunity to run this business. A friend of mine describes this as it's their train set, and they let me play with it. And it's such it's such a joy. So the idea that I can be me, like the things that are important to me and the values that are important to me are infused through the team that run around and make me look good, and it comes with challenges, of course. Nothing's ever plain sailing, but the whole idea of I bought into the idea of servant leader and that sort of thing, but it gets also to definitions around what does leadership mean. And I love a description that I think is attributed to Roosevelt, but the idea that leadership is the art of getting people to do what needs to be done, getting people to want to do what needs to be done. And so what's in three parts, that's quite lovely. So number one, it's an art, and it's desperately personal. So it's everybody does it different. There's no right or wrong. You can pick up leadership books of the 10 so and so or the 7 steps of whatever, and then that's somebody else's version. So you've got to have a version that is yours and deeply that reflects you. And you read all those books and you pick up bits that work, and that helps refine that particular brand that is your personal style. So it's that art piece. The other piece around having folks want to do what needs to be done is sort of this kind of a strategy piece. So it's like the need to be done, the focus around having that bigger picture of where it's got to go, and providing sort of team and motivation and those sorts of things. And then what needs to be done is that sort of operational discipline and focus, which is execution. And the trouble if you have like really skillful, competent teams, they can do anything.
Yeah.
But that can also be a terrible distraction. So you roll all that together, and I think you've got what for me defines my approach to what leadership,
leadership,
works.
Yeah. It's all about the people, right?
Exactly right. So we think we're running the fish business. We're all in the people business.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And you've had your battlefield as well, and I read in '97 that you found 6 illegal fishing boats in Heard Island, and this kicked off what basically started as a war against toothfish pirates.
Mm-hmm.
What was at stake there?
Everything for us.
Everything
was at stake. So Heard Island, for listeners, viewers who are not familiar, is Australian territory at the bottom of the Indian Ocean, incredibly remote, latitude 52 degrees
most
south.
remote island.
We share a border with France down there. Many Australians went to school believing Kosciuszko was our biggest mountain. Well, it's not. It's Big Ben. Many Australians also went to school believing we have no active volcano. Well, we do. It's called that same island, McDonald Island, and we managed to secure access to what was then a developmental fishery through the Australian Federal Fisheries Regulator, and that's an expensive operation. It's 4,000 kilometres from mainland Australia, and the first trip we went down there, we came back with nothing. That was, I think we rolled the dice for about $1.5 million, got 0 results for that. Murray France, who we talked about earlier, he went double or nothing. So we refueled, changed crews, went back again, believing that there was definitely something there. And we were then ultimately vindicated by seeing these boats actually catching toothfish in the area. So number one, they were illegal, but number two, they'd showed us where the fish was. So pretty quickly we made a fuss about getting them out of the area. So we had a angry little Icelandic skipper on board who was very effective at what we might describe as assertive boat handling tactics.
Right.
And he managed to intimidate them all to leave. So we had a rather bigger vessel than they did, but that early bit of sabre rattling was successful in that case. But over time, that ended up becoming really a 25-year journey of campaigning and advocacy and direct involvement that's pretty much rid that part of the world, for now at least, from unlawful fishermen entering our zone. But it's an amazing story.
It's just unbelievable. And there's another story that I find astonishing. Actually, in March 2015, your vessel joins Sea Shepherd's Bob Barker, chasing down the thunder.
Here he is.
Now, I mean, a commercial fishing company working with environmental activists. I mean, how the hell would that happen?
So you've got to fill in a few bits in the middle. So the whole campaign that was the fight against illegal fishing was is still something I reflect on with pride, and the impact that we had and the support we finally gained. I think was world class, and certainly put Australia on the map in terms of leadership around real control around illegal fishing. A lot of the work was done during the Howard government. And kudos to ministers like Chris Ellison, who was Customs Senator, WA Senator and Customs Minister. We did some amazing things. So some of the early patrols were unarmed and they're pretty useless. It was kind of a bit of an embarrassment, really, when illegal fishermen realised we were down there with a dog patrolling the beat, but no teeth. And there was some high profile displays of how pathetic that was, with the pursuit of a vessel was finally arrested with the assistance of South African special forces, and it was arrested eventually, but brought back here, a boat called the South Tommy, which is now a dive site off West Australia. And we moved the bar significantly. A whole bunch of other controls, cooperations with the French. Restrictions on documentation for fish, so basically a birth certificate for where the fish was caught, port state controls, flag state controls, market state controls. Still to this day, some very effective documentation of all trade in this particular fish, organised through international UN-style conventions. There's the one involved is in Hobart. But things had got fairly quiet. So by the late noughties, mostly under control. But there was half a dozen or so very sticky illegal vessels that had eluded capture, had found ways to sell fish through grey channels and sort of dark trade. And it was at this point that Sea Shepherd, who had been focusing on work in the whale sanctuary and bringing attention to some of those issues, shifted their focus from whales to toothfish. They were looking for another. I describe it as a solution looking for a problem.
Right.
And as a result, there was some early inquiry work. We had a connection with Jeff Hansen, who's was then and is still the Australian CEO for Sea Shepherd. We were never really happy with the sort of the media that Sea Shepherd had attracted, primarily through Paul Watson's influence, which was quite combative, and of course he earned himself quite a lot of notoriety around that time for those tactics, and that worked for him, but it wasn't the sort of thing we were comfortable with. And Sea Shepherd announced this shift in focus, and we're sort of a bit dismissive and a bit concerned by what might have been a risk to us. So an announcement that we're going looking for illegal vessels for toothfish in the Southern Ocean, me thinking, well, they haven't got a shit show of finding anybody down there. It's a huge ocean, and they're only one boat, and how are they going to do that? And if they don't find any illegals, do they come and harass the lawful fleet, and just for the sake of campaign activity? But to our collective sort of surprise and subsequent delight, they came across a boat called the Thunder, which was working just south of
Notorious.
Yeah, she was quite notorious. She'd been a very long term, as I said, sticky force for illegal fishing, and she'd also been using gear types which are quite abhorrent. So this is a bottom gill net, which is quite an indiscriminate gear, fishing gear, and there's kilometres of monofilament net weighted on the sea floor at great depth, and they they discovered this boat, and then the skipper of the Thunder abandoned his gear and then headed west in what was ended up becoming a pursuit of just on 110 days.
And this sunk, I believe, in 20 in
Yeah, so the end game of that, which was extraordinary, was as the pursuit unfolded, more and more sort of government and other resources came to paying attention. The boat and chased this cat and mouse game, played out across the bottom of the Indian Ocean, round under South Africa, up the African west coast. And it was about the time that we were delivering a boat that we'd bought and converted out of Norway. And she was coming from Norway down the west coast of Africa en route to Mauritius. And by this time, we'd developed quite a close, almost daily working relationship with Jeff, and comparing notes and looking what the options were. And at this point, I'd said, "How do you feel, Jeff? We've got a boat coming down. You guys have been at sea for a long time. How would you feel about some sort of a joint on water operation?" To which, without hesitation, he said, "Yes, absolutely." And then it was just to see how the logistics aligned. And the other important note is that we have Japanese partners. So
that's right.
So and the Japanese relationship with Sea Shepherd over Wales, of course, had been very fraught.
Yep.
But I rang the Tokyo guys and said, "This is the opportunity. We can do some work with Sea Shepherd, chasing this illegal boat." The phone went a bit quiet. But again, that trust, and
right.
Then it was a call to the skipper on the Atlas Cove, and he had been aware of none of this. They'd just been busy doing their thing, and I said, "Steve, these Sea Shepherd guys, I can't fault their commitment. They're arguably doing the work that either governments or indeed industry should be doing, and we're thinking of if their logistics work out, making a small play of some joint operations." So I said, "Leave it with me." By this time, the rendezvous was looking more likely, and then we put the skipper of the Bob Barker and the Sea Shepherd vessel and our skipper on the Atlas Cove in touch to work out the finer tuning with the rendezvous, and there's a magnificent documentary called Chasing Thunder, in fact, that beautifully portrays this.
I almost
instant
watched it, but
almost.
It's on the list.
But it was a spin out for the skipper. So the sun comes up this day in March in 2016, and he looks out his window to see not just the Bob Barker that had been there for 3 months or more, but he saw the Bob Barker, the Sam Simon, which was conveniently had been deployed just to back up, to take over from Sam Simon, because they were all running out of food and fuel, and this Australian flag fishing vessel. And it was quite the video sort of really does portray the distress of the skipper of the Thunder, which is like, what's going on here? I've got 3 boats on my tail now.
Yep.
The Sea Shepherd crew are talking about the legitimacy that our activities have added to their work, which is utterly extraordinary. And then finally, really without sort of as he was running out of food and fuel and options, a number of days after that encounter, the skipper scuttled his own vessel called Mayday,
right.
And
he ended up rescuing the crew.
The Sea Shepherd guys rescued the crew. The skipper left to the last minute to get off, but not last minute enough, because a small contingent of Sea Shepherd crew jumped on board and were able to secure samples of fish, collect charts, logbooks, computers, evidence sufficient to secure a conviction. So an extraordinary outcome. And I use, it's a long story, but the beautiful thing about, I think, our relationship is the power of these unlikely collaborators. So here we have on the face of it, two completely opposed kind of organisations, different objectives, but they're not that different. And so when you boil it down,
when you think about it,
like between us, certainly with Jeff and I, it's this abhorrence of any illegal fishing. Whether we live on legal fishing, so illegal fishing damages all that we stand for. We're looking to raise ambition around climate and to do something about marine ocean plastics. So you boil it down; those three things, they're like motherhood and apple pie, Ron.
Yeah.
What's not to love?
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
And yes, we have differences, but we work with the strengths.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, you spent $2 million lobbying to get the authorities to patrol the waters. It's a big bet on calibration over competition. Yeah. What made you realise that? And I mean, it's a lot of money as well.
It's a pretty graphic way of explaining what represents good fish, what best practice fisheries management's about, and it's about property rights. So, if I guess the notion is like on land, we accept the house you live in, the land you're on, that's yours, it's property. You can take that to the bank, you can leverage that. In fisheries, the stronger the property right, the stronger the right that you have to access that resource. In the case of toothfish for us, then the greater is the alignment between our self-interest as the operator and the community expectation. So you could dress this whole thing up as an exercise in altruism, but equally. Powerfully driven by self-interest. So that we were able to eliminate illegal fishing from Australian territory was, frankly, a win for Australia and a win for quota holders in that fishery.
Absolutely. It's a remarkable effort. You're the first seafood business in the world to go carbon neutral. The first. And the first is always the hardest. You're planting over 220,000 trees every year. And I want to talk about something here just to shed some clarity, some people might see that as buying indulgences, right? And
it's been put to me, Ray, that buying offsets like
buying offsets, yeah,
is like buying flowers for your wife after you've cheated on her.
Yeah,
I don't accept that, mind you. But
no, absolutely, yeah.
That's a very cynical view.
And it is absolutely, and I'd like to actually get your take on that because again, some people say you're burning 9 million litres of diesel, but you're planting 220,000 trees every year, and your contribution as a whole. Give me your take on that and your answer to that.
There's a number of elements to that. First of all, the fishing industry is, I think, unique amongst any other sector of the Australian economy. I can think of no other sector as entirely 100% reliant on nature and the functioning of the ocean. So if the ocean doesn't deliver, we don't live.
That's right.
If you're in construction or something, it's not going to be a big deal. Climate change, but for us, this is the ultimate existential crisis.
Yeah.
So our future depends on number one, doing what we can to bring about climate action, that is emissions reduction broadly, and number two, the focus increasingly now is on adaptation and how our business evolves in response to changing oceans. In the impact of climate change, it'd be very difficult for us to be advocating for climate ambition if we weren't prepared to be ambitious ourselves. And so it was a significant wrestle. It felt like the right thing to do, but it took time to have that thinking evolve and to put it in a way that would be seen as a business proposition to make sort of that statement and sustainability generally not just a line item, like a cost line item, but an integral part of the business offer. And again, with immense gratitude to my board, agreed to allow me to embark on this folly. But essentially, we secured board approval and managed to get certification to what was then the National Carbon Offset Standard at the beginning of 2016. So we're coming up nearly 10 years on this game. And that was just a matter of weeks after the famous Conference of Parties, Paris 21, that whole Paris Agreement that we hear a lot about. And it was an interesting play. So number one, it was around walking the talk. So we have to be speaking our truth, which I think we were able to do out of that announcement. It was courageous and scary, and what are we doing? That sort of thing. Is that deep sense of something's about to shift forever. But the reality's also been that it's taken a long time to develop, if you like, the commercial dividend. So we were ahead of our time, I think, in terms of consumers' sort of consciousness around these things. It was also a time when the Abbott government was hanging shit on wind turbines because they didn't look very nice, and some of that stuff. It was just, the ongoing climate debates were still alive and well. But it was also a way of, from a company positioning and then branding point of view, it was different to say the Julia Gillard spin, which was there'd be no carbon tax on my watch, and then put in a carbon tax. We would simply say to our customers, if you like what we do, you can choose our products. This is not mandatory. This is really an alignment of values. So by embracing those things that were important to us and doing what we can to wrap them up in our various the brand proposition, which is our various products, then we are able to unlock the value of our values. And I think as time has gone by, we have got better at it. There's still more to do.
Right, 220,000 trees every year. That's a lot of trees.
It's a lot of trees. We now have a more diverse portfolio of offsets. Again, it's a really complex space. Emissions in our sector are primarily from burning diesel, as you touched on. We're at 9 million or so a year.
Yep.
We are, along with aviation, one of those difficult to abate sectors. So we can't plug in a trawler at the bottom of the or a longliner at the bottom of the Indian Ocean, and recharge the battery. But the boat we're building now and the boat we delivered 5 years ago has hybrid electric. We're doing all we can to finesse and fine tune.
Spent $50 million on first.
And there's a little bit more coming. And then this boat that we're building now is
that's the Austral Odyssey.
Austral Odyssey is the boat we're going to have a look at next week. She should be ready for December.
Right.
And she's going to have some capability to burn in the future when it's available, potentially a methanol. So we've got a bit of extra tank space and some other design features in there for e-fuels when they should become available.
How do you gain the confidence to spend that kind of money on unproven tech in an industry like this? That's a lot of money.
It wasn't. If you like, the unproven tech component was a relatively small delta over business as usual. The boat's slightly bigger than we would have had otherwise, and so it did influence, as I say, the overall size of the vessel and some of the choices we made around engine packages. She's also hybrid, so she's got 350 kilowatt-hour load-shaving batteries, so that's just better for smoothing ships' loads, and that gives us better fuel consumption on the auxiliaries or those systems that provide electrical power, and also reduce some of the spiky loads that cause engines to struggle a bit more.
There's a lot of electric everything.
Yeah, and we've got
a lot of electric boats already out, and we don't have as much as the eastern states here in WA, but there is enough small boats.
It's coming along
in the water. Yeah, it's coming around. One thing that interests me that you partnered with WWF to launch that open traceability on blockchain, right? So anyone can basically scan a QR code on the product, and they will know exactly where the fish was caught and where the product come from. And you got GPS coordinates, the entire lot. Now, the vulnerability in opening your entire supply, whole supply chain to the world,
couple of things around that. So first of all, there is a little fudge added to the exact position because that's useful to no one. The position information's we store it accurately, but it's shared with a slight fudge, but that won't change anybody's experience. Details of the boat and the rest of the story remain. I think, to me, another whole complicated conversation, but fishing is highly vulnerable and highly exposed to regulatory pressures from everywhere. So whether it's maritime safety or fisheries regulations or marine parks, we live in a very regulatory sort of complex environment, but we also
especially in Australia.
Yeah, well, it's probably not unique, but we have to negotiate a thing that people talk about as a social license. So that there's the important elements around trust, and so the whole idea about revealing, being transparent is
that's right.
We have nothing to hide. So I think in these great debates around the way our industries interact with the environment, it attracts the interest of a lot of folks. If you are seen to be hiding things, then like in a social license sense, that's death. People will go immediately to the fine print. What are they trying to hide?
Yep.
I remember back to
you must be doing something wrong.
Yeah, you're up to no good.
Yeah.
And I remember back to the announcement we made. We told the world we burn 9 million litres of diesel a year. I had a number of people say to me, "Why would you say that?" I said, "Because it's true." It's like, that's the problem. They're like, yes, we produce a lot of seafood for that, but 9 million litres, yeah, that's it. Sorry. We're doing our best. We know it's not ideal, but if you try to hide that, then it's like, what else are you shifty bastards up to?
Yeah.
And so the transparency piece is like I have a kind of equation in my head, which is transparency builds trust. And the more courageous you are around being transparent, and there's a couple of tests still coming for us, then the faster that trust is built. And then trust builds loyalty. Loyalty builds premium, and then the whole supply chain is benefit. So that builds into the brand, the value that people place on the products you produce, and indeed, if you're an NGO on the outside looking in at a business that is prepared to be not perfect, we don't claim to be perfect, but we are happy to talk about the areas that we are imperfect at, and to be authentic about the efforts we're making to improve. And in that environment, that's all the punters want. If there's nothing to see here, move on. We'll go and look for some other shifty bastards that are trying to hide stuff.
That's right. More endorsements about doing the right thing.
Yeah,
correct. The toothfish had a terrible reputation because they're illegal fishing around it. Right. You created Glacier 51. You built it in top Australian restaurants.
Yep.
And now it's in 17 different countries, Michelin-starred places. How did you overcome the stigma, and how did you help change the public perception to that?
Again, that goes back to the early campaigns against toothfish were focused on the problem with illegal fishing. That was rampant. So during the turn of the century, the amount of fish available from illegal sources almost matched what was available from legal sources. And so the reaction of a number of US NGOs was to call for boycotts.
How do you quantify that? Just out of curiosity, how do you know that the illegal fishing almost equated to the same amount as legal fishing?
Yeah, that's a combination of a lot of different countries. A lot of work was done on that, and it's also been quite important to factor into stock assessment reports. So scientists need to have estimates around what the unfished state of those fisheries look like. And they need estimates of how much has been removed, both lawfully and unlawfully. And so there's market information that feeds with port state information, and I think we've got a reasonable approximation on it. But it was during that period that the boycotts were called, and the US were very active, and that's where a lot of the negative sentiment came from. And it's I think the point you're making, which is absolutely right, is that the first impression many people had to toothfish was like eating panda bear. Can't go there. It's rare and endangered, and the whole boycott thing had put people in the wrong headspace. But that also served to punish the lawful industry. So not only were we had our fish stolen from us with no regulatory oversight, none of the cost of compliance or anything that related to what we were up to from under our nose, from our resource. But for the product that we were producing, we were meeting our fish in that market at lower costs, which in greater volumes, which depressed the return. So for lawful operators, it was a very difficult period. And so the journey back from that became quite tortuous. But one of the critical things from our point of view was, first of all, in the Australian context, to get our borders back under control, to be able to demonstrate that the fish that we had management control of was indeed well looked after. We then embraced the third-party sustainability certification standard, which many viewers would recognise as the Marine Stewardship Council. It's a global third-party standard that makes sustainable fisheries claims. That became really a really critical part of the rebuilding journey, and then gradually with some of our partners in the US, we were able to work our way back into menus, because a lot of those chefs really love the product. Like as a culinary experience, it's a rock star.
It is amazing. I love toothfish myself.
Like a really memorable, unique seafood experience. And so they wanted an excuse to handle it. And it was the MSC that really provided that opportunity.
All right, excellent. And you go from there to the Skull Island Tiger Prawns. That's another premium brand.
SkullIslandPrawns.com.au for your Christmas treat.
Right. How do you create premium brands in what everyone thinks is just a commodity business?
This is anything I know about this subject. I've stolen from my wonderkind brand manager.
Right.
So he lives this stuff. I love it to bits. The power of social media and branding and messaging is extraordinary, and it's such a different space from when I began, where in the Murray, France areas, it was all about keep your head down. So it was like just catch the fish, drop it on the wharf, turn it into money, and
avoid attention.
Keep your head down. Let's just operate under the radar. The world's not like that. And so all that we've talked about thus far is around being part of the solution, not part of the problem. Having our head up, talking about the openly about the challenges and what we're prepared to do about them, and when it comes to the product, then having a brand is a complete change in the business approach. So for a seasonal product like a tiger prawn, or a toothfish, you've got to now keep stock. So your balance sheet's got to work a bit harder. Where you manage cash. These customers, they want a continuous supply. There's those considerations, and then all the razzle dazzle. But brands are you can't leave them alone. An epiphany for me, Ray, was standing in one of those multi-story supermarkets in Hong Kong, sort of shopping centres in Hong Kong. And you stand in the middle and you look it up, all these stores, and like this, all the big brands, and you think that every day somebody behind every one of these brands has to get up and think, how do I keep my offer fresh? How do I protect myself from my competition? And the day you don't do that is the day you disappear and you're irrelevant and nobody misses you. So the brand is not like, again, when I was more junior and we were selling commodities, the idea of a brand was put a picture of your favourite boat on the box and that's it, job's done.
Right. Yeah.
But brands take constant effort.
Every day, all the time.
Not everybody's up to it.
Yeah. It's not everyone's business.
No.
And then you've had when COVID hit, the toothfish prices dropped by 40%. That was 40 or 50% or something like that. And
because we were heavily exposed to restaurant business. Yep.
Yeah, and your China volume gets cut in half almost, right? How do you lead, David, when everything's suddenly threatened by something completely beyond your control? That's huge.
Yeah. They were a tough couple of years, but it's you just one foot in front of the other. We did some extraordinary things. The logistics, moving people around, keeping boats at sea, catching fish, all of that stuff. Particularly our Mauritius operation, unbelievably difficult. But I think we I won't say thrive, but we survived through that with the help of our friends. So there was, I think, a genuine support. One of the nice things about this business is, and it's back to the branding sort of values piece, but like every step of the supply chain, if we're able to do business with people who we enjoy, whose company we enjoy, who share our values, then all of the things that we've built into the brand at our end of the game get amplified at each step in the supply chain, and they're all friends. And so, in the case of some of those early toothfish transactions, we had a US customer who suddenly his business just stopped overnight, and we were shipping him product. We made some significant concessions to him, just basically sort of renegotiated price and cut him some slack in order to look after him. And then, after the initial shock to consumption was passed and people found other ways, and Costco and others worked out that they could move this product for in-home consumption and still do okay, albeit at somewhat lower prices. The next lot of cargo we'd sold, again, very cheap. Our gesture at the initial onset of COVID was we repaid in full with and with dividends, frankly, with a price top up after that market had got going again. So you get by with a little help from your friends, really. So and I think it's one of the great privileges of just doing the right thing. And the old biblical, as ye sow, so shall ye reap.
What keeps you going during those tough patches?
It's the people. It's just that the commitment to the team,
responsibility.
All those families that relied on us to keep them going, and they made enormous sacrifices. We had one chap who New Zealand fisherman who hadn't been home for a year. He was away for a year through that first year of COVID. The crazy rules that we had here for getting maritime workers. I mean, many of your listeners would be amiss to that, but there were some stupid rules and imposed enormous pressures on those people. But we never missed a beat. We had boats unloading in Mauritius with the skipper and crew handling all the logistics because we couldn't fly in there. There was no planes. We had people being resupplied, like Mauritius was running sort of mercy flights to and from Paris, and again through some amazing work from our High Commission in Mauritius. We got access to flights. One in particular was a freight flight. It was a designated freight flight out of Dubai, and we got 11 crew on that. They put on a special cabin attendants with the blessing of the Mauritian Prime Minister after the influence from the Australian High Commission. 11 crew, the only passengers on the whole plane.
Right.
Meanwhile, some of our competitors were chartering small executive jets, and it was crazy times.
It was crazy times for everyone.
Yep.
Now, you got the killer whales.
Killer whales.
And, sperm whales, taking up to 70% of the fish off your long lines. Right, that's not quite a business problem. That's an existential problem, right? So if we can't defeat entropy, really, how do we best manage the risks posed by unforeseen environmental changes like that?
So you want to know about whales, or what we're doing with whales, or the general approach to risk?
Yeah, absolutely. How do you manage that?
So the whales are like your dog, really. So there has been a lot of different work done in trying to find ways to deter killer whales in particular. Mm-hmm. Things like very loud acoustic signals, like almost the bird scarer approach, but it turned out they were just a dinner bell for those very smart animals. Mm-hmm. The best solution we've had is again simply not to reward them. So as soon as we see these either the sperm whales or the killer whales turn up in an area, we'll move away. Like basically leave your gear there, steam away 50 miles, and go and start again. Come back, pick your gear up
just
later.
like puppy training,
like training your puppies.
Yeah.
So if their behaviour is reinforced with food rewards, then that's a bad thing.
And they're very smart animals, aren't they?
They're very smart, and that we've seen evidence of them training the youngsters in the craft. The sperm whales are they're pretty clever too, but these are seasonal. So it's particularly the sperm whales, they're generally passing through that area on their way further north around winter time. So we've been able to survive. There are other jurisdictions where some of the French fisheries are significantly impacted by particularly resident pods of orcas or killer whales, and they're well known. They've got almost given them names.
How effective is that method that you've been using with whales?
It's the behavioural approach.
Yeah.
I think we've done okay. We've done better than most. So it's it's not without its challenges, but no, I think for the moment we're well aware. There's some other engineering possible solutions around, but yeah, for the moment it's not as bad as say our French cousins have in the waters to the north of us.
Yeah. Well, David, you work with WWF, even Sea Shepherd, but you also got critics saying that commercial fishing in Antarctica should end, period, completely. How do you engage with people who fundamentally oppose your right to exist altogether?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair question. I get it. These are particularly precious environments, and for many, from a more of a conservation perspective, they're almost sacred territory. We absolutely respect that. I would say to any of the sort of the serious detractors is that our presence is the protection is a protective force for those waters anyway. It is sobering to reflect that the Australian Antarctic icebreaker, the New Yeena, is currently in Heard Island, or she might have just left. The last time any taxpayer-funded expedition went to that part of the world was 2003.
Right.
In that time, we've had no less than 2 separate marine park plans have been introduced and expired without any taxpayer involvement. Everything we know about that fishery, well, not everything, but a large amount of what we know about that fishery comes from commercial vessels. It's the commercial vessels that provide a focus for our ongoing compliance commitment and partnership with the French. It's our commercial vessels that continue to take samples and monitor the environment, and I think give us an increasingly an extremely valuable view of the changes that are taking place in there. It gives us credibility in our partnerships with the French, our standing with the Camelot Commission. That's the Commission for the Conservation of Antarctic Living Marine Resources. And from an economic point of view, it provides jobs and really, as we've said, an extraordinary culinary experience with toothfish. I remain really comfortable with the contribution we make. We do have an impact on that environment. I'm not blind to that, but boy, oh boy, the efforts we go to with two independent observers, the science we participate in, the research that's conducted from our platforms, occasionally the people we take to the island.
All stacks up.
It stacks up.
It's a great response. You talk about feeding 9 billion humans by mid-century. You believe wild catch fisheries can be part of that solution, or are we heading towards aquaculture future kind of?
I believe wild fisheries need to play their part. Fisheries and seafood still an immense contributor to global human diets, immense, particularly in developing worlds. It sustains many coastal communities throughout the Pacific. It's super critical as a source of protein. It's a rock star. Like, it's almost tailor-made for humans. Omega-3s, trace elements. We produce it from within fully functioning ecosystems. Not like traditional agriculture, and we can often gaze upon farmland and see rolling acres of grazing country or cropping country and think, isn't that beautiful? But nature's been removed from those environments.
Yeah,
we live entirely with nature, so there's the biodiversity impact's limited. There are no pesticides, no chemicals, no antibiotics, no fertiliser. The only impact we have is burning some diesel.
Yep.
So the emissions intensity of seafood, and it varies across the range, but in the whole, it is more than competitive with the very best of terrestrially grown protein. And then I think the other fun fact is that if we were to close all oceans to fishing, then and we wanted to replace that protein with, say, grazing animals like beef cows, then you'd have to clear a significant part of the Amazon to accommodate that.
Wow.
So I would say the great challenge of feeding 9 billion humans as we gallop towards the middle of the century from a planet that's increasingly being adversely impacted, it's going to need everything we've got. Fisheries can and should play an important part.
And things are changing with all the hyper-electric boats, the new tech that's coming along. And how do you see that? How do you see the future of that in the next 10 years?
The electrification. We're already seeing, say, some penetration in inshore fleets. Ferry fleets are doing a bit more. Fascinating to see what Incat have done with their car ferry, which is the largest all-electric high-speed ferry. She's running, these sort of numbers get a bit lost, but she's running 40 megawatt hours of battery storage in a I can't remember the stats on the number of cars and passengers, but she's a very impressive machine. So bit by bit, we're seeing ferries increasingly electrified. Still yet to see much in the fishing space, but certainly for inshore operators, I'd say like oyster farmers, it'd be a really easy fix, or Peel Inlet crab fishermen, an electric solution would be available. Capital cost is a bit higher, but your OpEx is much
absolutely. It will be interesting to
much
see
more reasonable.
How successful that would be. Yeah, definitely. David, is there enough fish in the sea?
Enough for what? It's changing. I know Boris Worm famously. I won't even. I think we have the tools necessary to manage fisheries well, even in changing ocean conditions. So, if we look at the impact of climate now, many reports would suggest that species are moving towards the poles at the rate of about 100 kilometres a decade. In response to warmer temperatures, we're seeing marine heatwave events having adverse impacts on, say, salmon farms in Tassie, or that fish death in the Pilbara this last summer. Those incidents will continue and increase. But fisheries still have a role.
Yeah, there was this. I didn't really get to the opportunity to do enough reading on it, but there was this ban here that happened recently on fishing.
Oh, from the Perth. Yeah, that's a current debate.
What's that about?
That's the so-called demersal fishery, and that's for species like iconic, amazing West Australian species like a jewfish.
Right.
But they're highly sought after by recreational fishermen. They're a brilliant table fish anyway, and they're just amazingly local. So
right.
But the trouble is we've loved them to death. So and the minister right now is facing some very tough decisions. And in fisheries, we talk about the proportion of the spawning stock biomass, that's the mummies and the daddies, as it relates to their unfished condition. And in the metro area here, which is Mandurah to Lancelin, for jewfish, that's 7%. That is completely unacceptable.
Right. So you're in full support of that?
And that fish needs a break.
Okay. It's a fair call. Now, Austral 50th anniversary, you talked about the next 50 years.
Ooh.
Now, you're building something that outlasts you. What does success look like for Austral in 2075?
I hope we're still around. No, as I get to the end of my career, the challenge is a successor for the times. I feel like I've been I've honoured Murray France's legacy with my version of a response to the conditions that I've been dealt with. I think we've conducted ourselves on the basis of doing the right thing, a caring approach committed to partnerships and win-win solutions where I can, and I talk about leadership, and I'd hope that the leadership that follows me will be different. They will be different,
and you've made it incredibly intimidating.
No. I'm just the man.
Replaces you?
I'm the man for the time. But what
45 years. I mean,
yeah. I've talked to folks about this, and it's like I'd hope in 75 years it still looks like a BMW. You know, you got the kidney. You can look at a BMW from 50 years ago, and you can look at one now, and there's still a BMW. So I want to. It would really please me that in terms of values and approach, that Austral in 2075 still looks like a BMW.
Right. Brilliant. Do you have someone in mind that's getting ready for the
board call? But I think it's important to recruit from within.
Yeah.
And we got some good. I've got some great people. They're absolutely committed. I tell people I don't do much. I just sit around doing podcasts with Ray all day. But I'm in charge of royal waves and blah, blah, blah.
The first of a few more to come,
yeah,
I hope.
Who knows?
Who knows? We'll see. The right thing versus the easy thing. Mm-hmm. Right? Us humans, we like to always go to the path of least resistance, and we take the easy way out. That's just built in our nature. Now, doing the right thing rather than the easy thing gets you out of bed every morning. That's a high bar for 45-year career in the same industry. Have you ever taken an easy path? Or compromised anything?
It's not for me to judge, really.
In your personal view, in your opinion,
you still have to live in the real world. I think the thing that defines leadership in anybody that's in business is that it's the 1,000 decisions today. Who knows which ones contributed to the overall outcome? Some of them are obvious, some of them more difficult. Some of them are line call, but you've got to keep making the call. Not all of them are going to work. And you can learn as much from your mistakes. Well, you learn more from your mistakes than you.
That's right.
And it's in pain that character is revealed, and that fiery furnace that hardens steel, Ray.
Yeah.
So, no, as I look back on the career, there's been some incredibly painful periods and challenging times, but they make us who we are, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Remind us of our mortality in that sense. It's not. No, as Malcolm Fraser said, it's not meant to be easy.
It's not at all.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the easy way is never easy. 45 years connected to the ocean, from tropical Darwin to brutal sub-Antarctic waters, 50-meter swells, What has the ocean taught you about life and leadership?
I am still in awe now of the amazing complexity of life. Just how fragile and brittle and kind of precious it is. It sounds trite for somebody in my position, but it sort of underpins that respect. So, as we sit down to a meal, it's really important, and as a society, we're so disconnected from our food. But it's really important to reflect on how that comes to be. Our food and food systems, complex, immensely impactful. The throwaway stats are food production systems contribute a third of all greenhouse gases, the majority of biodiversity loss, and a third of all the food we produce we waste. Now,
sadly, yeah.
There's a lot in that. And so the idea for me, and every so often we have issues where, for whatever reason, refrigeration doesn't work or contamination or something happens, and you've got to dispose of some of the catch. It's just heartbreaking. So it is about respect, and you only need to drift over a coral reef with your mask on, and you look at every one of these organisms, and to think every one of these has mummies and daddies. There's eggs and larvae. There's various stages of growth development. They're either prey or predator, and of all of the millions of species that make up this planet, it's just such an incredibly complex, special thing. And I think it's the height of arrogance to think we understand it. And we in our business we attempt to do that, but as climate changes and we unleash forces, we can't begin to fathom, and we overlay that with that complexity, then that fills my head with all sorts of mixed emotions.
Right. And that must be what still keeps you up at night, I guess, because that was going to be my next question. After a tremendous career like that, you've achieved the MSC Lifetime Achievement, world's first carbon neutral seafood business.
Just a simple fisherman, right?
Simple fisherman. Yeah, very simple. You defeated pirates. You built truly global brands. And what could possibly be keeping you up at night now after all of this?
What world my grandson grows up in.
Right.
Yep. Simple.
Is there anything that concerns you the most?
Personally, I consume too much of the risky stuff. But as we, our generation's had a pretty good ride. We are entering uncharted waters, and there's some interesting work around planetary boundaries. So there's some work out of Stockholm that talks about the various planetary boundaries, and we're breaking through a number of those now with ocean acidification, with atmospheric CO2, with the biosphere, and et cetera. As those systems fail, and they're sort of all interconnected, or fail or come under pressure, then you have the chance that you can have cascading effects. So there's a lot of risk going forward, and then you occupy yourself with some of the technological advances. I think for all of the fuss about AI, there's still some. I'm still somewhat consumed by the unseemly rush to AI and AGI. It's like sort of those next level thinking systems and what's possible there, and then in the biological space, the tools we have for fiddling with genomes in species is truly phenomenal. And then just the nature of society as we become increasingly binary and intolerant, and resources become something that's to be contested. And we're seeing sort of glimpses of that now. So that's all I can I can fill my head with lots of dark thoughts, but that's not good for you.
No, but it's necessary to think about, isn't it?
And I think it is that sense. So it's like, and again, to some extent, that's my role. Is whilst I'm flippant about, I don't do much. It is about looking at the broader environment in which the business has to operate. So being across those if you like mega trends is part of being able to see around corners, position the business for what comes next, making sure we don't become a Kodak.
That's that's important. That's important. If you could talk to that 22-year-old kid that wrote 40 letters to all these companies, that got a ticket from his mother, get on a plane, come to Perth, end up in Darwin, what would you tell him?
Yeah, back yourself. Back yourself. Yeah. I was a late bloomer, Ray.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's not an uncommon observation, but I think when you're younger, there's still that hesitancy and tentativeness and that self-doubt. So I think the message is it's been caught up with a few phrases, but feel the fear and do it anyway, or better to live one day as a lion than 1,000 days as a sheep.
Absolutely.
And give it a good shake. Yeah, like in my case, it was, don't be so timid.
Great advice. Now, my daughter is about to start UWA marine biology next year.
Nice.
And she's going to be so jealous and excited and happy watching this podcast.
I'd be happy to talk to her.
That would be great. What advice would you have for anyone that's doing marine biology?
That's an exciting time. There is some good work. There's good work around. It's not always easy. Like say in the fish business, where there's some good work there. But I'm loving some of the stuff that the Australian Institute of Marine Science are doing with building reef resilience. There's still a lot of work to do with blue carbon. Some of those projects are yet to get off the ground. And I think there's still this increasing demands on the marine estate. So we talk about spatial squeeze in fisheries with demands coming from marine protected areas, from offshore wind, from existing oil and gas, from recreational fishing, First Nations ambitions for our coastal estate, plus defence and transport, etc. But there's a lot going on. So the systems for gathering data and monitoring, and the ocean provides us with lots of advanced warning around weather systems and potentially climate. It's also been the big buffer to the much of the climate issues that we may have been dealing with. But no, it's an exciting time.
Yeah.
And fisheries. Need more stock assessment scientists.
From the simple fisherman.
And the simple fisherman.
The simple answer from the simple fisherman. David, with your degree, you could have done quite a number of things. Why fishing?
Well, I think at the time, as I said, the timing was such that this was the growth area. I couldn't, as I said earlier, the study was good, but I just saw this being kind of tangled up in treacle going through more academic studies, and so as I said, I just decided I'd had enough of being a barnacle on the arsehole of society. I'll go become a fisherman. But it's been a good fit. So that little bit of sort of discipline that a degree brings, it doesn't make you qualified. It's sort of a very generalist degree, but what it does is gives you the tools to sort of do the research properly, logically present an argument. It's like the classic scientific, methods and tools like introduction and then hypothesis and results and discussion. So, just that formal structure about thinking things through has served me well. And then some of the concepts, of course, as we move through fisheries, complex as they are, that little bit easier with that foundation behind you.
Yeah, well, I can tell you on closing, I feel anxious for the next person that's going to step up to the chair, truly. And you're a remarkable man, and I'm grateful for your time. And I really appreciate you coming in today to have a chat with me. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Ray. Good work on all the research, mate. Very impressed.
Thank you.
You've taken a few peanuts out of the turds there.
Great. Thanks, David.